You don't chase what you respect. You chase what you think is slipping away. That's why they pulled back. That's why they vanished. Because in their mind, you started chasing. You gave up your throne to beg at their feet. My friends, let's kill the lie right now. People don't leave because of your age, your looks, or even your past mistakes. They leave when they feel they've conquered you. But what happens when you take that power back? When you stop waiting for their return and become the very force they regret walking away from? That's when they start running back, fast, and sometimes in 2 minutes flat. If you've ever sat there staring at your phone, hoping they'll call, if you've ever reread the last message wondering if it pushed them away, if you've ever gone to sleep hugging a silence that used to be their voice, this one's for you. Because today, we flip the entire story, not with tricks, but with Stoic rewiring that turns you from desperate to magnetic, from broken to untouchable. Before we jump in, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and press that little bell so you don't miss any of the upcoming mental warfare tools I'll be dropping. Stay with me till the very end. This one isn't a feel-good pep talk, it's a transformation session. Hey folks, imagine this. Imagine you're the sun, and they're a planet drifting further and further away, thinking they don't need your light anymore. So you dim yourself. You start apologizing for how brightly you shine, but here's the truth. The sun doesn't chase, it just burns. And eventually, those who wandered off will freeze in someone else's shadow and remember the warmth they once felt around you. That's what this is about. Becoming the warmth they didn't know how much they needed until it was gone. They didn't walk away because you were too much. They walked away because they thought they could find something better. But the universe has a funny way of humbling the proud. The moment you stop explaining yourself, stop trying to prove your worth, and start moving like you were never affected, that's when it hits them. Not gently, not softly. It hits like a storm they thought had passed, only to realize it was just the calm before your rise. Here's what most people won't tell you. The person who cares less holds the power. And I don't mean fake cold, I mean genuinely detached, genuinely whole, because desperation smells. You can say all the right words and still push them away if you're doing it from a place of emotional hunger. Stoicism isn't about pretending, it's about building yourself so powerfully from the inside that their return no longer defines your value. They come back because you stopped needing them to. You want to know what happens when you apply these new Stoic tricks I'm about to show you. You shift from someone waiting for a text to someone that makes them stare at their screen, overthinking every moment they let you go. They'll come back, not because you asked, but because you became the version of you that can't be ignored. That kind of energy doesn't chase, it attracts. So write this down in the comments right now and stamp it into your soul. I do not chase, I attract. Say it with your chest. Say it like your future depends on it. Because it does. Like the video, subscribe if you're ready to never beg again, and stay with me because the fire's only getting started. Number 1, reverse the emotional current. The moment you stop trying to be understood by someone who left, you become someone they can no longer figure out. That's where the magic starts, my friends. Not in the moment you send that long message explaining how much they meant. Not in the voice note you rehearse 100 times, hoping to say the right thing. No, everything shifts when you flip the emotional current. When you stop chasing and instead become the storm they can't read anymore. Think of a river that suddenly changes direction. It doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't explain itself. It just flows differently, and everything downstream is forced to react. That's exactly what happens when you shift your energy. You become that river. You stop flowing toward them and start flowing toward your own power. And trust me, they feel it. People always feel the shift when your emotional gravity disappears, especially if they were used to orbiting in it. Now I know what might be circling in your head. But what if they never come back? What if me pulling back makes them forget about me? Let's hit that lie right between the eyes. You pulling back doesn't make them forget you. It forces them to remember you in silence, and silence is louder than any confession. You've been giving them your thoughts, your energy, your presence for free. That's why they stopped valuing it. Value increases with distance. That's a law. You can write that down in your blood. What is always available is rarely respected. You don't need to explain yourself to someone who chose to misunderstand your value. You don't need to fight for a place in someone's life when your very existence was already a gift. What you need is to break that invisible current that's been flowing from you to them. Because that energy, that unspoken longing, that subconscious chase, it's been feeding their comfort, and the only way to starve their pride is to stop feeding it. It's hard. I get it, especially if your heart still wakes up at 3 a.m., hoping their name will flash across your screen. Especially if every little thing reminds you of them. Their laugh in a movie character, their scent in a stranger's jacket, their silence echoing through your playlist. But let me ask you this, do you want to be someone who waits to be chosen again? Or do you want to be the person whose absence makes others question their entire decision? Here's the part they won't teach you in those self-help books. Emotion is a current. It flows. And when you're too emotionally available, too expressive too soon, you overwhelm their ability to feel you. It's like perfume. You spray too much of it, and the nose goes blind. But you leave a subtle trail, and people turn their heads. Want them back? Then let your absence become that scent they can't quite shake off. They might have walked away thinking you'd crumble. But Stoicism teaches us not to react to the departure, but to respond by recalibrating, so we become unshakable. You're not begging, you're not plotting, you're simply pulling your energy out of their atmosphere and putting it back where it belongs, with you. That's what reversal looks like, and when you do that, they feel the withdrawal. They may not admit it, but deep down, they'll wonder why the emotional supply suddenly stopped. They'll check your stories, ask your mutual friends, revisit old texts, not because of what you said, but because of what you stopped saying. They say, if it's meant to be, it'll come back. That's incomplete. The truth is, if it's meant to be, it'll come back when you stop chasing it, when you become still, focused, and powerful again. Because people don't return to neediness. They return to what once made them feel safe, intrigued, and alive. But let me be brutally honest. It's going to be hard for some of you, especially those who live in their heads. Overthinking, replaying conversations, trying to strategize the perfect comeback. You've got to let go of the obsession to be understood. Let go of the need to make them see your worth. They'll see it when you stop placing it in their hands like an offering. You are not an emotional beggar. You're a force of nature learning to pull back the tide, not to punish them, but to remind yourself of what you've been giving away too freely. From this moment on, the current flows inward, toward you, toward your peace, toward your self-worth. You don't send another just checking in message. You don't casually like their story to stay on their radar. You don't drop hints through songs and status updates. You go dark. You go silent. Not because you're playing games, but because your presence is no longer a game to be played with. Write this in the comments below. Show yourself. Show to the world around you, I've reversed the current. Say it like a promise. Say it like a commitment. Say it because today you begin flowing in your own direction again. And stay with me, because in the next part, I'm going to show you a trick that requires nothing but an empty chair, and yet it'll reset your emotional strength like never before. You don't want to miss what's coming next. Number 2, the empty chair technique. The mind doesn't heal by filling the room with noise. It heals when you dare to sit in silence and face the ghost. That ghost could be them, their absence, the conversations left unfinished, the laughter that echoes in your head like a cruel rerun. But most of all, the ghost is you, the version of you that still waits, that still hopes, that still bleeds quietly in the shadows while pretending to be okay. And today, we pull that version into the light. The empty chair technique isn't some mystical ritual or therapy buzzword. It's raw, it's real, it's a test of who you've become since they left, because you don't need closure from their lips. You need confrontation with your own. Picture this. You walk into a room, no lights, just one chair facing another. One is for you, the other is for them, or rather, the version of them that still lives rent-free in your head. The one you can't block, the one you can't mute, the one that left but somehow still controls the temperature of your peace. You sit down, and you speak, not to them, but to the space they left behind. You say everything, the pain, the love, the questions, the fury, the dignity, not because they're there to hear it, but because you need to hear yourself again. You need to realize that everything you've been carrying wasn't meant to be carried this long. This is where the healing begins, not in another reply, not in another apology, but in this internal courtroom where the judge and the witness are both you. Now, I know what your brain might be whispering right now. Isn't this stupid? Talking to an empty chair, that won't bring them back. Maybe not. But the version of you that had lost their voice, that had shrunk in silence, they will come back. And that's the one you actually need right now. Not the person who left, but the version of you who forgot how to breathe without them. It feels weird, I get it. Awkward, emotional. You'll probably start off joking to yourself just to cope. But stay with it. Because once you break through the discomfort, you'll find a strange kind of power. You'll hear truths you've been avoiding. You'll say things you didn't even know you were holding inside. This isn't just a trick. It's an exorcism, an emotional detox. You are no longer begging them to come back. You're calling yourself back. The one that was lost in the storm of their silence. And here's the deeper magic. It resets your internal energy, that invisible frequency people pick up on when they interact with you. You ever notice how someone can say all the right things, but their energy still screams desperation? That's because their wound is still open, still leaking need, still bleeding longing. This technique cauterizes that wound. It tells your nervous system, we're safe now. We've said what needed to be said. We don't need them to hear it. We needed us to hear it. Now let me break another lie wide open. Closure doesn't come from them. It comes from the moment you stop rehearsing how you'll explain your pain to someone who never cared enough to sit still and listen in the first place. It comes from the day you finally speak, not to gain anything, but to release everything. And don't get it twisted. This is not weakness. This is not dwelling. This is not drama. This is the Stoics' way of processing emotion with purpose, rather than burying it with pride. You're not letting go because you don't care. You're letting go because it hurts too much to keep holding a rope that's already been cut. There's a reason this technique works so deeply. Our brains treat imagined experiences like real ones. That's why dreams make your heart race. That's why memories still sting. And that's why sitting across from an empty chair can sometimes bring more peace than 100 unread messages ever will. So what do you say in that chair? Whatever's raw, whatever's real, say you miss them, say you hated them, say you don't understand why they left, say you gave too much, say you stayed too long, say you were scared, say you were strong, say you forgive them, or don't. Just say it, because unspoken emotions don't die, they rot. And the smell of those rotting emotions is what pushes good people away, even when you're trying to move forward. You might cry, let it happen. That's not weakness, it's emotional weight leaving the body. You might laugh, that's healing too. The point isn't to be perfect. The point is to purge the version of yourself that's been holding this story in like it's your final identity. You are not the breakup. You are not the abandoned. You are not the one who was left behind. You are the one rising in the wreckage. And when you stand up from that chair, you'll feel something, not closure, something better, a clean break. A quiet kind of strength that doesn't come from answers. It comes from facing what hurt without running from it anymore. From that day forward, your energy will speak differently. You'll walk differently. You'll respond to their texts, if they ever send one, with a level of calm they won't recognize, because you've changed the game. You've ended the emotional loop. You've walked through fire, and now you glow. Write this in the comments right now if you're ready to step into that room. I faced the chair. Say it. Declare it. Let the world know you're not just watching content. You're transforming right here, right now. And stay close, because in the next part, I'll show you how silence, yes, pure silence, becomes your greatest superpower in making them feel your presence without ever making a sound. We're not done yet. Number 3. Silence as a superpower. Your silence will be louder than your explanations, more haunting than your goodbye, and more powerful than any words they thought they needed. You see, folks, silence isn't the absence of sound. It's the presence of power. It's the language of those who've learned to control their emotions instead of bleeding them. And when it comes to someone who left you, ignored you, or took your presence for granted, silence becomes your most devastating response, a response so potent they'll hear it even in a crowded room. Imagine standing in front of a door, knocking endlessly, shouting, begging to be let in, and suddenly you stop. You walk away without another word, no note, no closure, just space. Do you know what happens to the person on the other side of that door? They stop hearing your voice and start hearing your absence. And that echo, it rings louder in their mind than anything you could have said. But here's the catch. Most people are terrified of silence, especially when they're hurting, because silence makes you sit with your own thoughts. It forces you to face the truth, that you cared more, tried harder, gave deeper, and there's no distraction in silence, just reality. So we fill it with texts, calls, excuses to reach out. Just wanted to check in. Saw something that reminded me of you. Hope you're doing okay. Lies wrapped in kindness. But underneath them, it's just fear. The fear that if you don't speak, they'll forget you. Let's burn that fear right here. They don't forget the silent ones. They forget the noisy ones. The ones who begged, the ones who pleaded, the ones who turned their strength into confession. Silence holds dignity. It says, I don't need to explain myself. You were there, you saw who I was, and if that wasn't enough, I won't scream to convince you. Silence creates space, and space creates tension, and tension pulls people in. That's how the law of attraction works. Not by smothering, but by leaving a vacuum. People get curious when you vanish. People get anxious when you stop reacting. People get haunted when you stop trying. Now, let's be clear. I'm not telling you to use silence as a weapon. Stoicism isn't about manipulation. It's about mastery. You're not going silent to make them suffer. You're going silent because peace has become your new language. Because you've realized you don't need to say anything to someone who didn't listen when you did. That's the shift. That's when the power starts tilting back in your direction. And yes, it'll be hard. Every day you'll want to break it. Just one message you'll think. Just one last thing I need to say. But what if I told you that silence is the last thing you'll ever need to say? What if I told you that the loudest "I miss you" is the one that never arrives? Think about it. What hits harder? A long emotional text saying how much you still care, or complete silence after they left thinking you'd wait forever? That silence says, I've moved on, even if you haven't fully, even if your heart still aches at night. Silence doesn't mean you've healed. It means you've chosen not to pour your healing into the same place that broke you. There's a quote I want you to remember. Never waste words on someone who treats your voice like background noise. That's not bitterness, that's self-respect. Your energy is currency, and silence is how you stop spending it on the bankrupt. And guess what happens when you do this? When you say nothing, when you vanish without a storm, without a final act, without making it theatrical, they get uncomfortable. They check your profile. They reread old messages. They wonder if they ever really knew you. You become unpredictable again, and unpredictability is powerful. But more than that, they start talking to themselves. They fill in the silence with questions. Why did they stop reaching out? Are they seeing someone? Did they stop caring? That inner dialogue is where their obsession starts. And here's the paradox. They may not reach out right away, but that's not the goal. The goal isn't to make them chase you. The goal is to free yourself from the addiction of needing to be chased. Let's get even more real. Silence is the ultimate separator. It divides the ones who needed your attention from the ones who actually valued your presence, because someone who truly cared won't be comfortable in the silence. They'll break it. They'll come forward, not out of curiosity, but because they realize your quiet hurts more than your loudest words ever could. So, what do you do when the urge hits? When you want to break the silence just to feel close to them again? You remind yourself that every word you don't say builds your worth in their mind. You remind yourself that mystery is more magnetic than over-explanation. You remind yourself that silence isn't about them. It's about returning to your center. And if they do come back, you don't rush in. You don't break your silence with desperation. You meet their curiosity with calm. You speak like someone who has healed in the dark. Because the version of you who comes out of silence is not the same one who went in. They'll notice it. In your tone, in your eyes, in the way you no longer wait for their validation. Silence has rewired you. And if they don't come back, even better, because now you know who's real. Who's capable of showing up? Who's comfortable in your absence versus who was only addicted to your attention? And that clarity, that's freedom. So write this in the comments if you're done with noise, done with chasing, done with breaking your dignity for someone else's comfort. Silence is my power. Say it, show it, let them feel it, and let the world see that your peace is louder than their confusion. Because in the next part, we're going to take things even deeper. You're not just going silent anymore. You're going to learn how to become the mirror, the one that reflects them back to themselves. Without saying a word, stay with me. The storm is only beginning. Number 4, withhold validation. Become the mirror. The moment you stop giving them the reaction they expect, they start seeing a version of you they can't control. And that's the moment everything shifts. You see, folks, validation is the invisible drug. It's addictive for both sides. And most people are unknowingly high on it. The more you give it away, the more they expect it. The more they expect it, the less they respect it. And when it disappears, that's when the withdrawal kicks in. Let me ask you something. Who are you without their approval, without their likes, without their compliments, without their texts that make you feel wanted? Because if your identity is built on their reaction, they control your reality. And that's not love, that's dependence. That's emotional slavery dressed up as connection. And we don't do slavery here. We do stoic self-possession. We do calm fire. We do quiet dominance, and that starts by withholding validation, not out of bitterness, but out of deep, unshakable self-respect. Imagine you're a mirror. People come to you not to see you, but to see themselves. That's what relationships become for many people. They're not looking to truly understand you. They're looking to feel good about them. And you play the role. You complement. You reassure, you explain, you fix, you reflect back the image they want to see. But here's the twist. What happens when the mirror stops responding? When it no longer adjusts the angle to make them feel tall and beautiful and right? That's when they start to feel naked, exposed, uncomfortable. And that, my friends, is when they begin to realize what they had. Because the mirror, you, wasn't just reflecting their ego. You were holding their world together with quiet emotional effort. But you didn't see it like that. You saw it as being there, as caring, as loving unconditionally. They saw it as background comfort, a free reflection, always available. That ends now. From this moment on, your validation becomes sacred, rare, earned, not thrown around like spare change to buy someone's attention. If someone wants your praise, your affection, your emotional energy, they better come correct. Not with empty words, not with flirty games, but with depth, consistency, and presence. And I get it. Some of you are thinking, but I want to express love. I want to be warm. Isn't that what relationships are about? Yes, absolutely. But there's a difference between expressing love and bleeding validation. When you over-validate someone who hasn't earned it, you're not loving them. You're training them to take you for granted. And then you wonder why they stop texting first, why they respond slower, why your value keeps decreasing in their eyes. It's because you became the praise machine, the comfort supplier, the emotional ATM they could withdraw from without ever depositing anything real. Let's break the lie that says, they'll stay if I keep showing how much I care. No, they'll stay if they respect what you don't give away easily. They'll stay if your validation means something, if your words cost something. Let me give you a metaphor. Think of your validation like gold. If gold was lying on every street corner, would anyone value it? No, it's precious because it's rare, because you have to dig for it, because it requires effort. Be the same. Make them work for your attention, for your praise, for your emotional warmth, not through games, but through earned access. Start by becoming aware of your patterns. When they text you something simple, do you flood them with excitement? When they ignore you for days and finally message you, do you jump at the chance to respond instantly? When they give you a little affection, do you blow it out of proportion, thanking them like you were starving for it? That's not romantic. That's reaction-based living. That's training them to see you as someone who chases scraps. And you're not here to chase, you're here to attract. And attraction, real attraction, is quiet. It's composed. It's balanced. You don't need to say, I miss you, every time you feel it. You don't need to reply in 5 seconds to prove your interest. You don't need to validate them every time they show up halfway. Let them wonder. Let them question. Let them face themselves in the absence of your approval. Because the mirror doesn't speak, it just reflects. And when they come to you expecting that old reflection, the one that made them feel important without effort, and instead see a version of you that's still centered and unaffected, that's when the game flips. That's when they start wondering, what changed? Why aren't they reacting the same? That's when they begin to chase clarity, to seek answers, to earn you. And if they don't, good. Because now you've filtered out the ones who only loved the mirror, not the person behind it. Let this land deep. Your validation is a throne, not a vending machine. You don't give it away to everyone who puts in a coin of attention. You don't hand it out to silence your own fear of being unloved. You hold it. You guard it. You give it to those who reflect your value back to you, not just their needs. You want to change the dynamic between you and the person who ghosted you? You want to flip the emotional equation in your favor? You don't need better pickup lines. You need better boundaries. You don't need more affection. You need more standards. And one of the highest standards is this: I do not give away my validation freely. Say that out loud. Better yet, write it in the comments right now. Declare it. I am the mirror. That's your affirmation today. That's your anchor. Say it when you feel the urge to over-explain. Say it when you feel the need to compliment someone who's barely giving you crumbs. Say it when you're tempted to break your silence for a moment of fleeting connection. Say it to remind yourself that your worth is not proven by how much you give. It's preserved by how wisely you give it. And stay locked in. Because what comes next isn't about silence or space. It's about vanishing with purpose. About disappearing in a way that echoes louder than any presence ever could. The next trick? It's not just stoic. It's surgical. Stay with me. Number 5. Disappear with purpose. Sometimes the most powerful move is to not be seen, not be heard, and still be felt. That's the level of energy we're stepping into now, folks. Not the kind that tries to prove something, not the kind that seeks applause or asks for attention, but the kind that disappears so intentionally, it forces the world to notice. You don't just go silent, you vanish. And not because you're defeated, but because you've realized presence is currency. And when it's no longer respected, it's time to pull it back, like a lion retracts its claws, not out of fear, but out of wisdom. Let me ask you, how many times have you stuck around just hoping they'd change their mind? Sat there being overly available, emotionally exposed, practically handing them a front-row seat to your vulnerability, thinking your loyalty would somehow earn you their clarity. Be honest. We've all done it, waiting for closure, waiting for a sign, waiting for a text that says they realized your worth. And in that waiting, you forgot one truth. You are not here to be noticed. You are here to be missed. And nothing makes someone miss you like the right kind of disappearance. Not the one that screams, "I'm punishing you," but the one that whispers, "I've remembered who I am." You don't storm out, you don't slam doors, you just fade, calmly, confidently, like a master sculptor walking away from a half-finished piece, because you know your energy is meant for something complete. Picture this. You walk out of a room, you don't announce it, you don't make a scene, but as soon as you're gone, the air changes. That's the kind of presence you want. And that only comes when your absence holds weight. Not because of how loud you were, but because of the depth you carried. Now I know what you might be thinking. Won't disappearing just make them move on faster? That's the fear talking. That's the part of you that still believes you have to be seen to be significant. But hear me, those who truly felt your value won't be able to move on from your silence. They'll feel it in their chest, in the spaces where you used to show up, check in, care too much. Suddenly, there's nothing, no story views, no replies, no warmth, just absence. And that absence starts to speak loudly, because it's not just your presence they miss, it's the energy that came with it. They start asking, where did it go? And more importantly, why did it go? And that's when the narrative flips. That's when they start questioning themselves. Because as long as you're still in the picture, liking posts, sending the occasional message, orbiting their life, they feel no urgency. They feel no loss. Your presence is cushioning their ego, feeding their comfort. Even in small doses, you're the air they assume they'll always breathe. But when you disappear with purpose, you cut off the oxygen, and nothing triggers reflection like breathlessness. But let's be clear, this isn't about ghosting, it's about growth. Disappearing with purpose means you're not escaping the situation, you're elevating from it. You're not hiding, you're healing, quietly, privately, powerfully. You're not watching them anymore, you're watching yourself, watching how you move, how you rebuild, how you rise. And here's the hard truth. Some people will only realize your value in your absence. They won't get it when you're cheering them on, being patient, showing up. They'll get it when you're no longer around to soften their world. And that realization, that hits deep, because it's not anger they feel, it's emptiness. And that's not something they can fix with a rebound or a distraction. That's something they carry, quietly, regretfully, long after you've moved on. But disappearing isn't just for them, it's for you. It's your time to recenter, to stop outsourcing your emotional stability to someone else's behavior, to sit with yourself, relearn your worth, rebuild your standards, reinforce your peace. You get to ask, who am I when I'm not trying to prove anything to anyone? That answer? That's where your power is. That's the version of you they didn't expect to meet, and it's the one they won't know how to approach when you return, if you return. Because let's not forget, your disappearance isn't a setup for their comeback. It's a reset for your own comeback, a comeback to your mission, your focus, your inner world. It's you saying, I don't need you to notice me. I need me to remember me. And when you do, that glow is unshakable, that silence is golden, that presence, when you choose to give it again, is electric. You don't have to tell anyone you're disappearing. You just do it. Stop watching their stories. Stop replying to breadcrumb messages. Stop engaging with their digital presence like you owe them something. You owe them nothing. What you owe is to yourself, the time, the attention, the emotional energy that's been bleeding out for far too long. And here's the beautiful paradox. When you disappear with peace, not pain, they feel it more. Pain disappears with noise, but peace lingers. Your calm withdrawal becomes an unsolvable riddle in their mind. Why didn't they react? Why didn't they fight? Why didn't they need me to explain? That's when they start wondering. That's when the power shifts, because now they are the ones without answers. And curiosity, my friends, is what makes people come back. So don't chase, don't explain, don't announce, disappear with purpose. Watch the silence work. And when they come back, and many will, you meet them with the version of you that doesn't need them to stay. That's the final transformation. When their return is no longer your reward, your rebuild is. Write this in the comments and brand it into your spirit. I disappear with purpose. Say it, show it, let them feel it. And let yourself know that you're not fading away, you're rising out of reach. Now stay tuned, because in the next section, we unlock a type of energy that doesn't just repel drama. It draws in everything you want without lifting a finger. The secret? Unbothered masculinity, stillness, stability, power. You don't want to miss it. Number 6. Unbothered masculinity, calm over chaos. The loudest one in the room is the weakest one in the room, because real power doesn't need to prove itself. That, my friends, is the essence of unbothered masculinity. It's not about being cold, it's not about being arrogant, it's about being centered, rooted, unshakable. When everyone else is reacting, chasing, overthinking, you become the calm in the storm. And that calm, that's what makes you magnetic. Because peace is rare, and people always want more of what they can't disturb. Let's face it, modern dating is chaos. Mind games, mixed signals, breadcrumbs, ghosting. 1 minute you're everything, the next you're nothing. And the world tells you to react, to chase, to prove. But Stoicism tells you something different. Don't react. Respond. Don't chase. Hold frame. Don't break. Breathe. Because when you're truly unbothered, you become the rock in a sea of emotional waves. You become the man they didn't expect to find, stable when they try to shake you, still when they try to test you. And the truth is, most people are drawn to chaos because they're chaotic inside. They test you, not because they don't like you, but because they want to see if you'll fold, if you'll start dancing just to win them. And the second you do, they lose interest, because you became predictable, you became reactive, you became like everyone else. But when you hold your ground, when you can hear their silence, see their games, and still move like your life is your mission, not their approval. That's when they pause. That's when they look twice. That's when they feel the weight of your detachment. You're not ignoring them, you're simply not bending for their chaos. And that level of energy, that's rare, that's regal, that's what kings are made of. So don't lower your frequency just to get someone's attention. Don't shrink your presence just to be less intimidating. And don't soften your truth just to make someone else feel more comfortable. You're not here to beg. You're not here to perform. You're here to command, with stillness, not noise. Write this in the comments and let it be your weapon from this day forward. Calm is my power. Not because you're passive, but because you've mastered your fire. Show them, show yourself. Show the world around you that your value never needed a loud announcement. It needed only stillness. And if this message hits something real inside you, then press that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with someone who needs to reclaim their silence, their dignity, their masculine frame. You're not alone. We're building an army of men who don't chase validation. They attract respect. Stay strong, stay still, and remember, the calmest energy always wins.